Okay, now I'm going to log in now. First, Control-Alt-Delete. Okay, password. Okay, that's my server is loading up. Okay, I'll wait for our server manager to refresh the system. Okay, remember this section is just demonstrations on how DHCP Server works. Are we together? Now, if you notice, on this portion, we've actually added a role already, which is the DHCP Server role, right? We all know how to go about adding the roles. Is that not correct? Now, once the roles are added, you notice that on this icon here, you can actually manage the DHCP Server because this is just the dashboard, which just shows you a summary of all the roles that are available and the services that they are running. That's why whenever you click on any of these roles, it only just shows you what services that is currently running on the system. So we'll just allow the refresh to go through. I think it's done. So I can come here and click on DHCP Server. You notice it tells you the IP addresses of your DHCP server. Is that not correct? Now, if I scroll down, it tells me the events of what my DHCP server just did now. There's a warning here. So I can actually double click on it. So I can click on it. It says this computer has at least one dynamic assigned for reliable DHCP version 6 server operation. You should use only static IP version 6. Are we together? It says for smooth. Then it said the service is running. We can even scroll down again and see any other additional informations. Okay, we don't have a performance counter and it tells us what rows is stored. It said this DHCP server row is installed. Is that not correct? Okay. Now, what I want you to do, can you go to your network adapter? I want us to do something. Go to your network adapter. Now, you notice on my computer system, I have all my adapters enabled. Can you see them? They are all assigned IP addresses, right? Is your adapter enabled? Yeah, if they're all enabled, if they're not, you can enable them so that they can get IP address automatically. That will be apart from your main server, right? Which we already gave a static configuration. So I'm going to go to choose now. I'm going to go to DHCP. Now I can expand this. Now that is my DHCP server, server 1. I can expand it. Then I have two servers, IP4, IP what? So I can expand IP6. Now if you notice that we have our first scope. We call it scope what? A. Now if you expand it, now these are the options we were talking about now just previously on the class lecture series. We had the address pool, which is the range. Is that not correct? Then we have the exclusion, right? Then if you notice here, we have list duration. Now, if you notice on my list, my address list, did you notice that all the computers I connected now, they've all be given IP address? It did not only give them IP address, it actually also gave them what? It actually also got the timestamp. Is that not correct? Now, if you notice my timestamp here, it's 4046. This one was given at 4046, and this one was given at 404.2. Is that not correct? Now, if you notice, my time actually corresponds to the time also here as well. Now, if I go to reservation, you notice I don't have any reservation here. Is that not correct? Right? Now, if I come to scope options, I only have two scope options, which is my DNS name and my what? DNS what? Server. Are we following? Then, of course, we have the policies here. Is that not correct? Then this is your server options. This is your policies for the server. And that is your featuring, which I'm going to talk about now. Now let's try to create another scope. For example, let's come to the server, IP version 4. Right click and say new what? Scope. So we'll click next. We can call this one scope what? Scope B. Huh? Scope B. I'll click next. So I'll put this one 192.168.2.1. So 192.168.2.5. That's my range. So now I click next. Now it's going to ask if you want to create an exclusion. I'll say, okay, exclude 192.168, or rather, I will skip this step. I'm not going to use this step. I'm going to do it later on when I finish. So I'm going to click next. Then I'm going to leave it at 8 days default, or you can change them. Then I'll say configure the options now. Or I can say no, configure the options what? Later. I'll click next, and I'll click finish. Now if you notice, scope B has been created. Is that not correct? But if you notice there's an icon there, you notice it looks like the scope is not yet what? Active. Because remember we didn't configure it, right? So you can right click there, and if you notice there, you see activate. Is that not correct? Yeah. Do you see activate there? Yes. By right clicking on the scope, you right click, you see activate there. But we're not going to activate it now because we still need to configure the what? Options. We didn't put any options here, right? So what I'm going to do, just follow what I'm doing. Just follow what I'm doing. It's just a demonstration. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to options, scope option on B. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say configure what? Options. Now it brings me to the same icons I will also see if I was doing it on the wizard. Now what we did not configure was DNS name. So let's start with the the name server. So what's our server name? PCE.local. Is that not correct? So let's resolve. Click resolve. It said the host was not found. Actually, our name server is different from what? The host. Our name server is different from the domain server because that name is a domain name. So what was our name server? Our name server is SVR1. So when I click resolve, does it resolve the name? But do you notice that when it resolves the name, it's giving us IP.5. Is that not correct? Well, because we have so many IP addresses, right? It's giving us IP.5. Are you saying it? If you type it again, S1, it's still giving us the same 5 as well. Now that's for name server. The next one, it's DNS server. So let's click on our DNS server. Let's type mce.local. Resolve. Wow, it's giving us 4. It's using the IP addresses because remember we have so many IP addresses, right? Now, but normally if I know that I just want to use only one, I can actually just come and put one there because I know it's one we have. Are we together? So I can come here and say add one. So it's going to first check and one is valid. I'm going to come here. I'm going to remove this. I'm going to type 1. I'm going to click add. Or let me just remove it. Let me come here and resolve the name. SVR1. Resolve. It's giving me 5. So I'll come here and put 1. It also allows 1. Now the other thing we can do, we can also add the what other things did I add last time? Host name. So I can come here and click on the host name, and I can add the host name here, which is of course SVR1. But I'm gonna check that. I'm gonna add the host name here. Domain name. Our domain name is PCE.what? Local. Is that not correct? That is 015. Just check the box, then you add the name. Then I can scroll down. There's so many things you can add as well. We can add broadcast address, router solicitation address, static root option. There's one thing I'm looking for. NetBIOS 047, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, yeah, NetBIOS name. Now our NetBIOS name on our server name should be SVR1. If you click resolve, it's going to resolve it to .5, but I'm going to leave it at 1. I'm going to add it and it's also going to work. When you're done with that, you click apply and that's it. Then you click OK. The server, it's set up. You see these configurations, when users request for IP address from this server system, they will be issued what? This configuration. Now, do you know what I want to do? You see scope B is not yet activated, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come to scope A and I'm going to deactivate it. So I'm going to right click here and I'm going to say deactivate. Have you seen it? I'm going to deactivate it. Are you sure? Yes. Now, I want us to go back to our network IP address. Come in here. Go to your network adapters. So what I want you to do, if you double click on your network adapters, you'll notice that it actually shows you .1, .3. But remember the scope we just created is .2, .1, right? Is that not correct? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to disable these adapters now, apart from the main server. I'm going to disable this. I'm going to disable this. And I'm going to disable this. Now I'm going to go back to the DHCP server. Now both of them are deactivated, so I'm going to activate this. Are we together? I'm going to activate this. I'm going to say activate. I'm going to come here and refresh my server. It said it's activated. Okay, if I right click, it shows it's active. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go to my network adapters. I'm going to enable them. Let's see what IP address they get now. Let's see what IP address all of them are going to get now. Okay, it's quite taking some long time to identify. So let's just leave it for a while. Now listen, I've enabled back the scope A. Have you enabled your scope A? Yeah, it's actually giving only the IP address for scope A for now. So normally we're supposed to get only just scope. Scope B was supposed to assign. Okay, that's by the way. Okay, that's for address list. Now, how do you check the authorization of your server? How do you know how many servers are authorized? If you come in here to server 1, if you right click, did you see where, excuse me, you see where it says authorized or unauthorized? Did you see that? Yes. Then of course, if you come to IP version 4, if you right click, you'll notice where you see property. Do you see where you see property? Yes. Now, if you click on property, you'll notice it takes you to the property of your IP version 4 DHCP configuration. Now, you saw that DHCP auditing is enabled, right? To audit, but I'll talk about this later on, okay? Then you have DNS. Did you see where you have DNS there? Remember we talked about enabling dynamic DNS, whereby the client's computer automatically gets updated on where? The DHCP, on the DNS server, right? Let's go to the DNS server. I think I asked you guys to open the DNS server before. Let's go to the DNS server. Now on the DNS server, I'm going to talk about this later on. Forward lookup zone, reverse lookup zone, conditional forwarders, global catalog. I'm going to talk about this later on when I start DNS class. Now if you expand this under forward lookup zone, you'll see your domain, pce.local. Click on it. Did you notice that you saw all the records now? Did you see them? All the records. Can you see them? .5, .1. Did you see all the records? And it tells you when they were updated, right? Exactly. Are you seeing them? Okay. Now, if I go back to the DHCP server, I think where was I? I was on the settings, huh? Yeah, we're on the settings. Now, if you go to this way, I'll talk about this later on. This is called network access protection. I'll talk about this. This is whereby you can disable all scopes for network access protection, or you can enable all scope. If I come in here, I can actually restrict access to scope, meaning computers will need to go through this protection, which actually checks your computer if your Windows is up to date, your anti-spyware is up to date. It checks the security level of your computer first before you're issued IP address. Are we together? Then this is on the advanced tab where your DHCP server is located. This is where your DHCP server is located. Then, of course, we'll talk about filtering later on for MAC address, and you can enable them as well. So I'm going to click OK. Now let's go back to the DHCP server. If you wanted to know how many authorized DHCP server is on your system, you go to the top here where you have DHCP. You right click, and you see manage authorized servers. So if you click here, it will show you only the server that is authorized, which is your what? Server 1. Is that not correct? Now, if you wanted to add more servers, you actually have to now come in here, right click, then you say add what? Servers. So by default, you already see only the one that is authorized. Then if you have other servers in your network and you want to authorize them, then you type in the IP address, you click browse, it takes you to the Active Directory, then you click on the server, enter, it will come on that list. Then you can authorize it. So but now we only have one server authorized. Now, there's something I want us to do. I'll talk about it later on in when I bring up the slide after you come back from the break. It's where your Active Directory database is. If you want to know where your database is, go to your Windows Explorer, go to Drive C, then you go to Windows, then you open System 32, which is the System 32. Open System 32. Then did you see DHCP? Do you see DHCP there? Now if you open it, now that is your DHCP backup file there. Did you see that? Yep. Now this is where you do your backup. This is where you come and do backup on your DHCP. Are you getting me? Now what I'm going to do now, remember I have how many scope? I have 2 scope, right? So what I'm going to do, sorry, this is where you export. That's my DHCP server. Did you see where it says backup? Did you see where it says backup? Yep. So I'm going to click backup. Actually, I'm going to make a new folder on my desktop. Can we go to my desktop? We'll create a new folder called DHCP back. Have you done that? Just create that folder on the desktop. Just go to the desktop, you say make new folder, then write DHCP back. Now select that back folder, click OK. Now your DHCP will be backed up to that folder. So let's just leave it for a while to back up the entire database, to back up everything. Are we together? Huh? Yes. Are we together? It's going to back up everything. So you can refresh. So now let's go and open the folder. Let's go to the desktop. You can come here and minimize everything. That's your desktop. Do you see the folder there? You see that? You see the file there? That's the file. Do you see it there? That's the file there. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go to my DHCP. Now I'm going to delete this database. These scopes. Are you getting me? I'm going to right click. I'm going to say delete. I'm going to come in here as well. Yes, I want to delete it. It's fine. It said because this scope has active clients. Is that not correct? So let's imagine that this server is actually a brand new server system. Let's go to Drive C, DHCP. You still see that you have your file here. Is that not correct? Do you see that? That's your backup. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to delete that backup there. I'm going to come here. I'm going to delete this backup. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to select it, right click, just select the whole folder, select everything there. Just delete them. Now let's say this is actually a brand new server system from the scratch. These are your event log. These logs are actually captured just to give you information of how your server started. Are you getting me? What happened? How many IP address was received? What happened with the DHCP and things like that? This is just an activity log. Are you getting me? Are we together? Okay. Now what I'm going to do now, I've deleted that database now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come to my DHCP server now, which is this. You see the server? I'm going to right click. I'm going to say restore. Do you see restore there? So I'm going to click restore, but I'm going to go to the where? I'm going to go to the desktop, right? I'm going to expand desktop. I'm going to click on what? DHC what? DHCP what? Backup folder, right? Then I'm going to click on OK. It says in order to change the changes to take effect, the services must be stopped and restarted. Would you like to do this now? Definitely yes. Is that not correct? So I'll click yes, and let's see what happens. So wait for the services to run. Now we get a confirmation there. The database was what? Restored. So let's assume this was a new server we were restoring the database to. So I'll click OK. I'll come here, expand it. Do I have my two scopes? Do I have my address list as well? So all I need to do is just to refresh it, and it will automatically reconcile. Are you getting me? Are we together? Now, but this actually happens if you're moving the DHCP server from one system to another. Are we following? Okay, what about reservation? How do you reserve an IP address? Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to delete all this. I'm going to delete this list now. I'm going to delete it. Are you getting me? I'm going to delete this. Now, let's go to the network address. Now, if you notice, on Ethernet 3, can we check what IP address Ethernet 3 was using before? Ethernet 3 was using .4, right? I want Ethernet 3 to use .5. Now, did you notice the physical address there? Can you write it down? Write the physical address. So I want to write Ethernet 5, sorry, the Ethernet 4. I want to use this network adapter to prevent it from connecting. That is where you want to secure your what? Your DHCP server from unauthorized what? Access. Are you getting me? So I want you to write that MAC address now. Disable all, yeah, disable all, which apart from your main server, okay? Apart from your main server adapters. Make sure they're all disabled. Okay, let's go back to the DHCP server. Now, click on reservation. Did you notice on reservation is empty? Is that not correct? Is that not correct? Reservation is empty, right? So for us to create reservation, I'm going to right click now. I'm going to say new what? Reservation. So I'm going to give it a name, Ethernet. It was Ethernet 3, right? Was it Ethernet 3 we used? And we say we want to give it .5, right? But remember what was there before was .4. Yes or no? So I'm going to come here, I'm going to put the MAC address. For mine is 0802724E. Ooh, I don't even know what I wrote before. Let me go and check it again. C1, okay. Just wanted to check mine. C110. Description. You can leave that. Now, you guys remember we talked about boot TP, right? And boot TP was the old way, it's a legacy support type of DHCP configuration. But now we use DHCP server, so I'll just leave it for both. Are we together? In case you have legacy systems and DHCP systems. So I'm going to click on add. I'll click close. But before I do this, I need to have come in here and create a reservation, exclusion. So I'm going to click exclusion 192.168.1.what? 5 to 192.168.1.what? 5. so that DHCP does not assign this IP address to somebody else, because I've excluded it. Are we together? Are we together, guys? But then I can only allow this to work if I'm going to assign it statically on the client. Are we together? Are we together? Yes. If I'm assigning it statically on the client, then I will need to leave it. I will need to create this exclusion. But since I'm not going to put it statically, I'm going to right click and I'm going to delete this exclusion. It's fine. DHCP knows that that IP address is already reserved, so it will know how to get it. Now, if you go to address list, it will actually show you that the IP address is actually there, but it's not yet connected. So what we're going to do now, guys, we're going to go back to the adapter, enable the adapter, and let's see if it's going to change to active. So let's go back to the adapters. We're going to enable them now. Enable all of them. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Okay, this one already got .3. Let's see this. Wow, .5. It doesn't make sense. Let's go and find out if it's active. If we come back now and refresh, you'll now see it's now what? Active. We now have the IP address set up already, reserved. Every time that particular network computer connects to your DHCP server, it will continue giving the same IP address every time. Are we together? But we're not left out. There's this guy we want to also play around with. This guy. This guy, we don't know who he is, but he's always connecting to the network. But we know his IP, we know his MAC address, right? That's his MAC address. I want to prevent him from connecting next time. So do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to close. I'm going to go to the DHCP server now. Did you see where it says featuring? Did you see featuring there? Yes. Class, do you see featuring? Yes. Can you expand it? You see there are two options there, allow and what? Now, do you know the problem with this guy? The problem with allowed is that if I go there and I put allow, only those computers will be allowed in the entire network to connect. Are we together? Now, I don't want to work with allow. I want to actually work with what? Deny. But do you see that little red icon in those two folders, which is a sign that they are not what? Enabled. Is that not correct? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on deny. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say new featuring. Now, you notice it's only asking you for one question. MAC what? Yes. So let's type the MAC address of that computer then. So mine is 08002795BA1D. Now, this is a MAC address of my Ethernet. So my description, I'll put it Ethernet 4. That is on my Ethernet 4 adapter. So I'm going to click on add. Close. But you see, this policy is not yet working because on this denied icon, it's actually not enabled yet. Are we together? The policy is currently disabled. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to right click. I'm going to say what? Enable. Are we together? Now it's enabled now. Let's go back. Confirm that it does have IP address, right? So let's disable the adapter again and re-enable it. Because that's the fastest way, huh? Instead of restarting the computer, okay? So disable the adapter, enable the adapter again. It's going to try, connect, it's going to be trying to connect, and it will give up. It gives you 169. So let's wait and see what happens. If you double click on this now, let's see what IP address it gives us. IP par 169. Are we together, guys? Forever and ever, as long as that computer keep having that MAC address, it will not be allowed to get DHCP what? Configuration. But you see, instead of deleting this MAC address, you can actually come in here and just disable the policy. That's all. Then you go back, enable again, disable again, because that's the fastest way. Enable again. And let's see what happens this time. Wow, it's quite faster now. And now it has an IP address. Guys, that is all about DHCP server. That's a secured way. I'm talking about the security now, okay? That's a way to secure your DHCP server.